Across eons, one singular motto has echoed in eternity, a common thread that has bound civilizations for millennia, from the coasts of Lustria to the warpstone deserts of far Cathay. Around elves, watch yourselves. When the trees start speaking Azrai, you just might have come to the wrong neighborhood. The wild hunt is on as Orion, King in the Woods, leads an army of angry deer against Malekith the Witch King and his Dark Elf invaders. Foul spirits are awakened, the Skaven and Beastmen have scarred the land with their taint, and as this battle gets underway, the elves have already Vanguard deployed on top of each other, a circumstance that will likely not benefit those Dark Riders. Talked about it before, Great Stags are one of my favorite units in this trilogy, had to go back and check them out. They're everything that Monstrous Cavalry should be, from aesthetics to playstyle. They are straight up majestic, and the best way to get the most out of them is to bring Orion with his Horn of the Wild Hunt to increase their charge bonus by 60% map wide. Now, I haven't done the math. It would not surprise me at all if that extra charge is somewhat redundant, given that hit chance is capped and they already have a huge charge bonus, but seeing big numbers makes me happy in my pants, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters, right? This is really why I don't recommend Vanguard deploying against Wood Elves or Beastmen ever. The risk is rarely worth the reward. For the Wood Elves, it'll be 2 Wild Riders, 2 Great Stag Knights, which can be really good in certain situations and a wasted pick in others. Overall, a super fun but somewhat niche unit because of their exorbitant cost, but against slower, armored factions they can thrive and completely take over. Life Spellslinger with Earthblood, Shield of Thorns, and Regrowth, Eternal Guard, Glade Guard, defensively positioned Wild Rider, and some Vanguard Dryads that have already taken the hill a la Sakura Ridge days from Shogun 2. On the flip side come the armies of Malekith the Witch King, Dread Spears, Corsair Handbows, a lot of bodies, and their leader riding a cold one into battle with Chillwind, Soul Stealer, and Gaze of Malice. A lot of good tools for slowing and killing Cav blobs, and Malekith has always been quite a solid lord. Supporting him are 2 Cold One Knights, 2 Scourge Runner Chariots, and a Master for his dueling prowess and Guardian Aura. So as the action gets underway, you'll get a great look at the size difference between Wild Riders, Dark Riders, and Great Stags, and I really wish that moving into Game 3, Stags would have become the new blueprint for the scale of Monstrous Cav. Amazing models and animations, and without question, the highlight of the Twisted and Twilight DLC for me. But as always, they're a risky investment, because unlike most other Elite Cav, they're incredibly squishy. Very little armor, mediocre defensive stats, their best defense is a brutal offense, which is why Orion is leading them to blow that Horn of the Wild Hunt and turn them all into bloodthirsty animals. 119 charge bonus right now, but finding themselves in a dangerous position because Dark Riders were behind them and have maneuvered to pin them down amidst a block of spears. Only way to get out of that situation is through the enemy. So we've got a race against time here if they can break the Dark Riders before they take too many losses to the Dread Spears. Fear should enable them to do so and tear their way through that blockade, and they will. They dumpstered those Dark Riders. Got a clean charge off on the Dread Spears initially, and then a clean charge off on the Dark Riders who outflanked them, but they will take some losses on the retreat, and they're down to about half HP. Something cool though, it's called Regrowth. Lore of Life is pretty strong and should heal them up nicely. They only lost 5 models, and a few of those were only to the Handbows who got a volley in as they retreated. Now, if you ever played Avatar Conquest for Shogun 2, this should really ring some bells for you. Cav Rush on any of the ridge maps, Alpine or Sakura Ridge, meant that you could claim the hill and threaten downhill charges into any infantry on the approach. It can be a commanding position for a mounted build like this one. Regrowth will freshen up the Knights who are already up to 50 kills. Orion's poking and prodding with his spears, looking to potentially lead a charge into the Corsair Handbows, which are a good pick here. They can deal quite a bit of damage to the low armor of Azrai troops, and already that Silver Missile block chance is paying some dividends for the Stag Knights, who are taking quite a bit of fire from these Scourge Runner Chariots. And here comes Malekith. Here comes the Master leading the charge into the midst of the Great Stags, and more poking and prodding. A little bit of a feint from the Great Stag Knights over on the Azrai left flank. Probably could have finished up on that charge. I don't think they would have taken too much damage from the skirmish fire if they tied both those Handbows down in a single engagement, but maybe didn't want to get too close to the spears and all that potential focus fire. Only 60 armor on the Great Stag Knights and even less on the Wild Riders means they will take quite a bit of punishment from point-blank volleys from those Blackheart Corsairs. Pretty much anywhere you look, this is tenuous ground for the Druchii. which is fitting, because Malekith is Darth Vader and he knows all about ceding the high ground. Downhill charges from Wild Riders are painful, but Cold One Knights will look for it anyway. They're going right in. Now that can be a cost-effective engagement, especially with maybe a Word of Pain or something tossed in. Cold One Knights do tend to trade upwards decently versus Elite Cav, but a Shield of Thorns paired with the extra downhill momentum, and of course Orion skewering Raptors with his spears, will make that a bit nightmarish for the Noglier, and they will not hold out for very long. Their staying power has never been particularly noteworthy anyway, but yeah, they just pretty much got deleted from the game, and Orion is styling on them from the flank. So Great Stags take some damage there, but Shield of Thorns helped a lot. That extra 20% physical resist and more base weapon damage, quite useful in a fight like that one. And while handbows can kite, they will not outrun 90 plus speed in that situation where Great Stag Knights are actually more effective than Wild Riders, because even though they are squishy, they still have double the armor of Wild Riders, and they have quite a bit more AP to get through that 80 armor. So handbows, they're going to get run down. They're in a lot of pain right now, and the Cav has had, I wouldn't say free reign, but when they're doing stuff like this, I mean, that is as gorgeous as a Cav engagement can possibly get. Literal hammer and anvil from both sides. Shot Cav just having their way, taking out more Cold One Knights here, and this is starting to look really, really bad for the Dark Elves, right? Balance bar shifted a little bit in Azrai's favor. Earthblood to heal up everything over here. Those are the important troops for the Wood Elves, and things are going great. But Malekith and the Master have a little plan, and things are developing over on the Azrai right flank. We'll check in on that in a second. There are some free Wild Riders that are having fun, but this is the fight I'm talking about. Now, initially, Malekith wanted to drop a Soul Stealer, but that'll get canceled in favor of a Gaze of Malice, which is quite good against the low armor of this Azrai cavalry. 60 armor, 30 armor, both of them will feel that for sure. That'll kill some models, deal some good damage, but then the Soul Stealer comes out, and the Great Stags are pulled back into the fight with these Scourge Runner Chariots, who committed to melee. And Scourge Runners are weird. They're like weirdly good against large targets in melee sometimes. They'll kind of tie you up and do more damage than you'd expect because they're firing from point blank range. And suddenly, what looked amazing for the Cav out on that flank, it looks like both of them pretty much got deleted from the game. Not outright, but they took a ton of HP loss there. And Dark Elves kind of cracked a nut over on that side and might be able to collapse in now with the Scourge Runner Chariots, who are a big threat to the Great Stags from point blank range, which is weird. Obviously, they don't like to get charged. All that armor piercing would hurt them quite a bit, but a lot of routing troops. Wild Riders, harried by the Master and by Malekith. They're breaking towards the edge of the map, and they're super fast, so sometimes that can screw them over because they move so quickly. They just don't return in time. Another Earthblood from the Spellsinger to give these Great Stags and Wild Riders a little bit more HP to work with. Only 336 though, so nothing too substantial, but God, another gorgeous downhill charge, and Blackguard Corsairs crying for their mamas. And I don't know if Rule 34 has any art depicting deer, but this has got to be making a lot of those kind of fetishists extremely pleased. Very happy with how things are going for the deer in this game. They've been extremely impactful. Impact damage from the Great Stags, just so satisfying to watch. Chill went to slow down the Glade Guard, who are in a very precarious position. Scourge Runners aren't incredible for running down infantry, but they can tie down these ranged troops and deal good damage to them. And the Wild Riders out on the flank with the rear charge. Remember, they also cause fear. Most of the Dark Elf army here, besides Malekith, not immune to psychology, so they break when they get rear charged by fear-causing units that do that much damage and have frenzy. Cold One Knights, the few remaining ones that managed to return before running off the map, well, they wish they hadn't come back because the Great Stag Knights made sure they entered an early grave, and we've got a big duel brewing between Malekith the Witch King and the King in the Woods. Now, Orion has the benefit of being unbreakable and that Cloak of Isha when he drops low for regen, and a very nice 20% ward save, a meaty ward save there, and a lot of cavalry, the remnants of them, coming in for the full surround off. But remember, Malekith has some very useful spells for clearing out blobs like this one. And yes, indeed, even though there is a Earthblood coming in to heal, that 336 HP will be completely negated by a gorgeous Soul Stealer that will not only suck off a bunch of Great Stags, but also hit Orion the King in the Woods and the Spell Singer, who's been pushed out of the box by the Master and is being run down. May get decapitated by his AP Halberd if she doesn't get some help from the Cab. But the Great Stags, they are helping, and they came to her rescue at a very opportune time. Full surround on the Master, and that's a lot of weapon strength, a lot of armor piercing going his way. Malekith did not quite get a juicy enough Soul Stealer to keep him tanky and survivable, and beating Orion in a straight up duel will be pretty much impossible at this point. And commanding lead for the Azrai. They've taken the hill, they pushed back all the fodder, all the foot troops, left the Master and Malekith isolated, and this will be a Wood Elf victory beyond a shadow of a doubt. And a lot of it comes down to the cavalry play. God, they got some great charges in that battle. That was super fun to watch. And, I mean, it's one reason why I love me some Wood Elves, dude. Like, there aren't too many factions that can play like that with monstrous cavalry, and obviously that Horn of the Wild Hunt is just such a unique ability for Orion the King in the Woods. 60% charge bonus map-wide when it's active. Lets you do so many cool things with the Wild Riders and with the Great Stag Knights, and we saw them do a ton here. Orion himself did a ton, almost 2,400 damage value. A lot of that from dueling the Master and Malekith, but also got some good attacks in on the Cold One Knights, which racked up a good amount of value too. Rest of the stuff wasn't really meant to do a whole lot. It was a Cav-focused build, and the Cav did exactly what it was meant to do. Great value across the board on a lot of those cavalry units, and Cold One Knights, they had no chance in that fight. I think the only way you want to take a 1v1 against Great Stag Knights in a uphill scenario like that is if you've got Word of Pain and Malekith and the Master immediately supporting that engagement, and the fact that they weren't there when those Cold One Knights took the downhill charge just meant they got obliterated from the game. He needed those to deal more damage to the Stag Knights, because there were still some relatively healthy ones over on the other side of the field, and you can't have Wild Riders at full HP in the late game and expect any of your infantry to survive. And obviously once the infantry is cleared out, you're in big trouble because Malekith can't carry that by himself. It's a difficult matchup for the Dark Elves, though. Wood Elves are very strong after Twisted and Twilight. Dark Elves are not a bad faction by any means, but they've always had difficulty dealing with the Wood Elves, even before the DLC, and it got worse after. So, GG. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video. Any Pride? Signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.